For lesson 7, we're going to be talking about drawing with the pen tool. The pen tool is one of those tools that you just really need to practice with to really get control of it. Once you do, it's going to be one of your favorite tools in any of the Adobe programs. So it's just a good one to learn from the very get-go. On top of this, you can also Google Adobe Pen Tool games, and there are 2 games that'll pop up that are just little silly games that you can kind of play to practice using this tool as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to come, you need to go to the module and you do need to download a document for today's lesson. So we're going to just use a coloring sheet to kind of get the practice. So you're going to open up the coloring sheet that you downloaded, which is in my lesson 7. And we're going to start from here. So right now I can tell that my image is much better, bigger than my artboard. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to check and make sure it's just laying on there, which it is. But I'm going to come up to my artboard. I'm going to rotate my artboard to make it horizontal. And then I'm just going to downsize the size of this image to fit onto my artboard. And I believe that my artboard is about a 5x7. So let's see if we need to change that. There we go. It is a 5x7, so that works. And then I can just Control-0 and get it to fit on my screen full. Now, whenever you add an image in, you can do it the way I did it where I opened it, or you can go to File and New. And we'll just go ahead and do a custom. Well, I'll change this to 10 by 8 and make sure the orientation is sideways and go down 1. And I can open up a new document. And then instead, I place my document into this one. It just gives me a little bit more control over it. And then I don't have to worry about it opening it like as a JPEG. It'll open up as an Illustrator file. So I have it selected here. Or I have it open here, and I can go up to File, and this time I'm going to do Place. And I'm going to find that same file. I'm going to select it. Because I have it open already, I just said yes, I'm going to go ahead and work with it. And then I can click up in this corner, and it's going to put it on that artboard for me. And I'm going to go down, and you can see my artboard is this black line, thin black line right here, so I can size this one and just pull it up and fit it. I'm not worried about it distorting because it's a cartoon anyway, so it's completely fine. Now I'm going to actually resize this so that just the image fits inside of the box, not the Made by Joel part, just to make my image a little bit bigger so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so there it is. I've got it on here. I'm going to close out that original one that I had opened. Don't really need it. I'm going to use it as a placed item instead. Now I'm going to come over here to my layers panel. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to lock it in place. And I'm going to create a new layer. For this one, it just really depends on how many layers you want to use for it. If you want to use a different layer for each owl, it's going to keep it a little bit more organized for you. But it's really a practice. So it's up to you how you break it up. Now, I will go ahead and I'll just name this one Left. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom in on it. Now, for this one, for when you're using this pen tool, I always suggest that you kind of think as this as being built on top of itself. Now, you can go in here and you can just create all these designs and use them as strokes, but then you can't fill them with color. And we want to go ahead and color while we're doing this just to have some fun with it. So I'm going to start with this one right here, and I'm going to go into his head. Now, I keep wanting to call it a cat because he kind of looks like a cat, but this little owl, we're going to start with his head. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make his head shape because his eyes should be on top of his head. So I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to click here in the corner, and I'm going to come down to as far as I can with that straight line, which is right about here. Now, to create the curve, I'm going to click right about here, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it. and kind of twist it as I go to get it to fit that shape pretty well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and change my color because I cannot see what I'm already drawing since it's already black. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change my stroke color to red just so I can see it. Also, I want you to pay attention to the fact that you can barely see it right here, but I'm going to fill in my fill with a color as well. So it's blue. So now as we go around this, you can see this fill. The problem is going to be if you get to somewhere and it starts overlapping its own line, you can always just turn the fill off. Whenever I'm doing anything with the pen tool, I usually have my fill, which is this one right here or this one right here. I go in and I do the no sign just to turn it off. That way I'm only working with what I need to see, which is the path at the moment. Okay, now that I got that all fixed, I'm going to click right about here. And I'm going to create that curve. Now you can see that it kind of curves weird right here because I went down so far. So if that's something that you need to fix, you can either fix it with your direct selection tool when you're done, and you can kind of pull these handles, or you can go back and you can do multiple of these anchor points. So every time you click, you can do them a little bit closer together and be able to control it a little bit better. I'm going to leave it for now so that we can try and use the handle at a later point, but I'll show you on this curve what I'm talking about. So here I'm going to press and hold Alt because I want to reset my path. And instead of going all the way up here like I did on this one, I'm going to go right here so that I have more control over that path and click it. And again, Alt and click the anchor point and I reset. And then I can come up here a little bit further and build that curve as well. The pen tool is going to take a little bit of patience on your part because you're just going to have to get used to clicking and dragging and resetting and all of those type of things. So Alt and I'm going to reset again. I'm going to come down here. His ear curves just a little bit. I understand that you may not be able to get it perfect the first time. Completely understandable. What this is about is just practicing it and kind of trying to get it right. And click, and I'm going to drag this one. When you're doing a curve like this, sometimes it's easier to do half a curve and then let it mimic its curve. So let's go, I'm going to do Control Z and I'm going to do it that way to show you that way as well. So if I do here, I click and I drag, then remember it automatically curves for me, and I can just let it mimic itself. And then I'm going to come up here and click on my last one. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a curve, and there it is. So now if I was to come over to my layers and I turn off this layer 1 with the eyeball, you can see my kitty. Sorry, my owl. Okay. Now I'm going to grab that direct selection tool and I'm going to try and fix this anchor point right here. So when I click on that anchor point, you can see I have some handles pop out, and I can kind of manipulate both the handles to this anchor point and this anchor point to kind of get it to curve a little bit smoother. Now, the only thing is when you move this anchor point, keep in mind that it's going to adjust over here as well. So you just kind of have to go back and forth with it. You can also, if you need it to, take your pen tool and add an extra point in there. If you need it to curve it a little bit smoother, or you can sometimes select the curve and choose convert to a smooth point, and it'll help smooth that out a little bit for you. Okay. So we're going to go down now and we're going to fill this. So I have his head done and I want my owl to be, this owl, we're going to make him blue. So I'm going to click this blue color for my fill. Oops, and I don't have it selected. So I have to grab my selection tool, select the path. Now, one thing I want to show you while I'm saying this is right now, if I click right here, I have no fill on him, so I am not able to select anything. It's basically like, think of it like a cookie cutter. You would have the metal around the outside and nothing on the inside, and you would just be kind of clicking and not selecting anything. If you have no fill, you have to actually click on the path itself to select it. Now, if you had a color there, so let's go ahead and change him to blue now. If I have a color there and I want to select that shape, then I can click on the blue. I have something there. So it's just a little note to notice whenever you're trying to select something and it won't select. Okay, so I have it selected. I did the blue. I'm going to do no stroke on him. I don't want him to look cartoony. Or you can do the little black on him and do like a basic little selection around him. And then if I come back over here and I close my drawing, you can see it looks kind of like this. Okay, now we need to do his eyes, but we can't see his eyes. So I'm going to do the drop down on that layer, and I'm going to close that eye. And I'm going to use my ellipse tool. And I want to make this circle like right on top of it. One cheating way to do this is to go to View and turn on your rulers. And I'm going to do Show Rulers. And you'll see them across the top of your page and the side. And one of the nice things is you can create guides simply by dragging off the rulers. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab my ruler, click and hold and drag, and I'm going to drag it down and put it right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing from the other way. And now I've created these two guides, and they even show up over here on your layers panel as sub layers. You can get rid of them later, or you can even close them. And now if I grab my ellipse tool and I line it up with that corner, it's going to give me a circle close to the same size as what that is. Okay, so I'm going to simply go right here. I want the eye white and the stroke black, so I'm going to go right here and click it. So now I have an eye, and I can just duplicate that eye if I want, or in my case, I'm going to go ahead and draw the black part of the eye first. So I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to come over to my guide, and I'm going to click on the guide itself and move it down and outline the outside of the black circle. And use my ellipse tool, put it right here in the corner. Oops, cancel. I clicked outside where I wanted it to go. Okay, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to do another circle. And then down here, I'm going to use my default black and white, but I want to flip them. So I'm going to use the swap right there and swap them. So now if I open up all these layers again, I have his eye. Okay, I'm going to close his head for one more second though, and I'm going to make a selection over his eye like this. I'm going to click on it, press Alt, and I'm going to drag it to the side and drop it close to where I want it. And then if you wanted them to be different sizes or different shapes or rotate one or whatever, you could do that. And then here's his head again. So now I have two eyes. I'm going to turn it back off. And I'm going to use my pen tool because this is what you're supposed to be using for this one. Don't use your shape tool. Use your pen tool and make his beak. Now you can make a circle with the pen tool. I did it with the shape tool just because it's going to be a cleaner circle. If you're doing a circle with the pen tool, I always suggest that you do it in 4 parts. So you do one, you do like a clock. So at 12 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, you're going to click and drag. And make sure you kind of keep your handlebars up and down straight. And then you're going to go to 6 o'clock and it'll mimic itself. And then you go to 9 o'clock, kind of line it up. And again, click and drag, try and keep your handlebars straight. And then you'll do 12 o'clock again. And then you can always use your direct selection tool and select those top ones. And you can either pull this little bullseye down and it'll curve it better for you. Whoops. And click on the bullseye. Or you can use your convert tool up here and make that a little bit rounder. I pulled it a little too far, so he's a little eggy, but you get the point. So whenever you're doing a circle with the pen tool, the easiest way is to do 12, 3, 6, and 9, and then back to 12 again. Okay, for my beak, I want to change my beak color. I'm going to go right here and swap them back again. So black is my swatch. And then I'm going to do my fill color, and I'm going to do kind of a yellowy color. So now, there he is. And what I want you to do is just kind of keep going through this. We'll do a little bit more of this one together, and then you'll do some of them on your own. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And now we're going to do his body. So for my own sanity, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it body. And his head would actually project a little bit further than his body would. So I'm going to pull body below the head for left. Okay. And we're going to start with the shape of his body. So I'm going to come up into his head a little bit just to make it easier on myself. And I'm going to click. And I'm going to click and drag. And then go back up to that anchor point and reset. Then I'm going to come right about here. And I'll zoom in on it. I'm going to come right about here instead of trying to build that curve in. And I'm going to curve this part of his body just a little bit. And again, now see, I'm back. I'm still on the orange fill. So I'm going to take my orange fill off. And I'm going to change my stroke color to a red so I can see it. And then I'm going to come here, but I need to reset because it's curving a little too much. Go there, reset again. So Alt while I click. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to curve it. And you're going to notice that these owls are not perfectly symmetrical. That's completely okay. That's a little bit better for when you're practicing. And come up here a little ways. I'm going to bend it a little bit. And I'm going to come up a little bit further. And I'm going to bend it a little bit. Keep kind of coming up like this and bend it a little bit. And then I'm going to come straight across here. Now, why is it okay that I did it over the top of his head? Because we have the layer behind it. So whenever we go to change our fill and stroke color, the head layer is going to cover it anyway. Now, let me show you one thing. I did this the easy way. I just went in here and I changed, well, not the easy way. I did it one way. I went in here, I changed stroke color to what I wanted, and then the fill color because I have it set. Now, if I wanted to do it another way, let me close the body so we can see it. You can use this eyedropper, and like I said in one of the previous lessons, if you use the eyedropper and click on an area you've already chosen or you've already created, it's going to mimic the fill and the stroke color already. So by doing that, it automatically did that. Also, if we were to on the head and we had made a thicker stroke size, it would mimic that as well whenever you did it. Okay, so we got the body kind of picked. So I'm going to close it again, reopen my layer 1. Now you're going to have to decide what you want in the back, what you want in the front, what you want to overlap, and pick it from there. Now, remember that if you do something like this shape here, and you just go down this specific line, what it's going to do is change it over. If you come back up around the side, it's going to give him a different wing color. If you want this to stay blue and this to stay blue, you are going to have to, oops, there we go. You are going to have to just do the line itself. So I can do this, I can do this, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to round it, and then I'm going to come up. But again, I can't see it, so I have to undo my fill. And then I can come up here and come back up and connect those. And maybe I want this to be pink. So then if I open up my blue background, you can see it just like that. Now, another thing that's really nice about this is you don't have to get your pieces perfectly aligned. So if our pink, say I made the pink and it was like here, you can use that direct selection tool and be able to, whoops, use the direct selection tool, click on the anchor point and be able to make adjustments to just that layer and kind of grab the handlebars and twist this and turn it to where it lines up better. And you can do that on any of the anchor points. Okay, and then you would just close these two and you can continue going on. If you have any questions, please just let me know. Otherwise, what I'm going to have you do is I want you to go ahead and do all 3 owls. If you want to do a background color as well, you can. But I want you to kind of practice on the owls. Do they have to perfectly look like this? No, not necessarily, but I do want you to do as many of the lines as possible. Use this as really good practice with that pen tool. When you're done, what you're going to do is make sure everything's turned on except your background coloring sheet. So I don't want to see any of those lines that were created by the background coloring sheet, or you can even delete that layer. So to do that, all you have to do is click on that layer, make sure it's unlocked, and drag it down and dump it in the trash can. And it'll completely get rid of that layer, and then it won't show anyway. The problem with having some of those placed layers is sometimes, like if you put a photograph in here and you draw over part of it, but you don't draw all of it, if you just close it when you save it as PDF, sometimes it'll kind of glitch and it'll show the drawing and the image in the PDF, even though you don't want to show the PDF, even if you turn it off. So it's just a nice little way of getting rid of it. So next thing you're going to do is go up to File. I'm going to turn that off. Go to File and Save As. Again, save it as an Illustrator file, last name _ lesson 7, hit save, and then do the same thing to save it as a PDF. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and I'll try and answer them for you. Otherwise, go ahead and finish out your coloring sheet.